So, I'm back again, and I mean, it's been a very eventful week if you've been watching wrestling or you're following it. Um, three things I really, really want to talk about that are on my mind, and in a way, I'll do it in order of importance. So, the least, well, it sounds bad, but listen, first thing I want to talk about was WWE Tough Enough. It's into its second episode already, and my thoughts on the show thus far. It's having its moments. There's not a lot you can really say from two episodes, but it's had its moments. Um, probably one of the best moments so far, and probably one of the moments that will be immortalized in our minds will be Steve Austin asking the one lady what her favorite match is, and her saying Melina versus Alicia Fox, and Steve Austin looking like his brain short-circuited, and like having to almost restrain himself from having a fit of rage right there and then. I thought that was just one of the best moments thus far. Um, on Miss USA, she just comes off as being a bit fake for me. She's a pretty woman and all of that, but like this whole way she's carrying on, it just comes off like an act. And that's the thing with a lot of reality shows. There's a lot of people behave like that, and it's like an act, and they're just doing it for the cameras. And apparently, she's in it to get an acting job. So that's the rumor running around. Um, so second episode's kicked in, and obviously there was a big shock at the end of that episode with former Ring of Honor wrestler Matt Cross being eliminated. And I'm sure in a lot of people's minds he was probably the favourite to win that entire show, or to at least get into the final four. And he was the second person eliminated, and it was very interesting. And I think a lot of people have got different opinions on that. I think Matt came across as quite normal and quite nice. I didn't find him being like a camera hog or playing up to the cameras in a way that was fake. And he was very likable. And I don't think he caused any unrest in the camp of guys. And in a way, that was also the thing that held him back because he was almost too quiet and too reserved, where it really harmed his chances from standing out. And I think that the elimination of him, it was pretty sad to watch actually. Um, to see him get eliminated and almost in a way get a little bit berated there and maybe a little bit dissed. But I think that how can I look at it? If the if this really was the judge's decision, then I can understand that they said, well, we know he can do all the moves and we know he's got the timing right. We need to see a character from him. We need to see something that they can use then because they want to see the next star really. And I guess they thought that Cross didn't have it or didn't display it there. And I think some people thought that Matt was holding him back, and it's possible that that was the case. But I have to admit, it makes for great TV, but it was also sad to see him get eliminated in a way, because he was quite a sympathetic figure in that sense, and Steve, kind of taking the little thing from him, the belt, and him kind of trying to hold on to it and just looking devastated. I mean, I felt really, really bad for him, but in a way, it could be a lesson for him. If I were him, I would go out there and I would make it a mission to prove the casting and the judging of that. I'd go out there and make a point of making Steve Austin look wrong and make him look like he was wrong about you the entire time. Situations like that happen in real life, whether it's a job interview or something that happens to you, and you shouldn't use this as an excuse to cry in the dark and listen to Mariah Carey CDs and cry and eat chocolate and get fat. You should use situations like this to inspire you, to light a fire under you, and to really go out there and say, well, you know what? I'm going to prove you wrong, you motherfucker. And when I blow up, you're going to fucking eat it. And I think hopefully that does that to Matt Cross, and that's what he goes out and does. Um, it's also just funny watching these goofs on Tough Enough and thinking, wow, they rejected Austin Aries and told him no for all these people. And I have an interesting theory on that. I reckon they didn't want Aries on the show because they would have had a real life Daniel Bryan situation where it would have been ridiculous because he would have been so far ahead of the pack that he should win and that they don't want him to win because he's not Mr. Charisma or Mr. Well, he's got charisma, I'm not saying he hasn't, but he's not Mr. Pretty Boy and, the standard WWE look. and I think that would have been very exposing if had he been on there. But who knows? And then as I'm watching Tough Enough, a little commercial pops up, and I'm thinking, okay, what's this? And it says Raw, because I actually wasn't watching this downstairs in my living room. I was actually up here watching it on an illegal stream. And an advert came up for Raw saying announcement from Edge, and I thought, I really hope this isn't a work or this is some kind of angle that they're building up. But I have a really horrible feeling about this. So in the end, I almost forced myself to stay up till about 3 to see what this was. And lo and behold, Edge came out there and announced that he was retiring from wrestling altogether. And I was still thinking, this can't be an angle, this can't be an angle, don't be an angle. And what we saw was very real. Edge had some complications with his neck, stemming from an injury and some surgery he'd had. And he said he'd been on borrowed time coming back. And he started experiencing problems again and saw a doctor and was told, look, if you continue, you're going to end up in a wheelchair. And he had to make that decision to retire. And you couldn't help but feel that emotion right there. And it was a very hard thing to watch, and it was very sad to see that. Um, I think a lot of us wrestling fans could almost relate to him, the real life person, because he's not too dissimilar from all of us. We were all fans when we grew up, when we were young kids, seeing Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior, and all these, larger than life superheroes. And then he was one of the few that went even further with his, idolization of wrestling and turned it into a career. And there was something very relatable to him that night, and it was very, very, it was very sad to see, because you still think of Edge as a young man. He's in his 30s, and you would never think he was going to retire so soon. Then again, he'd done an interview last year in the summer where he said if he got injured like that again, he would consider retiring because injuries are getting harder and harder to come back from. So in a way, we could have kind of expected it, but not so soon and not under these circumstances. Um, I think this is a huge, huge, huge blow to the WWE. He's been one of the cornerstones of the company for the last 5 to 6 years. Um, Tremendous performer, tremendous heel. I wasn't too hot on him as a babyface, but I always felt Edge as a heel was tremendous. Really, in my opinion, one of the few guys that got the best out of John Cena, as in not just matches but the reactions. He got Cena cheered for eventually. He was a good, aggressive heel. A lot of people say what really got him over was it that stuff with Matt Hardy. I think Edge eventually just got himself over because he was just so good at being a heel, and just such a good, well-rounded performer. One of the best gimmick match performers that wrestling's ever had, and it's just a real shame. It makes you wonder what's going to happen now with SmackDown. Apparently, there's a tribute to him at the end of the show. I don't know if they're going to air it, but apparently something's going to be on SmackDown tomorrow. Um, you think though, what are the WWE going to do now? Especially SmackDown. That's their guy gone now, and they've still not really built up enough names to help fill that void. They've been talking about pushing new stars, and to be honest, they haven't really spotlighted enough people even at WrestleMania, and that's just my thoughts on it. And now with a situation like Edge, it makes you wonder what's going to happen. The good thing though is at least for Edge, he kind of goes out on a high. He got to wrestle that WrestleMania match, which was his last match, which was a good match. He got to walk out with the world title, even though it's all predetermined, and he kind of got to go out on his, on a good note rather than Edge having a decline in form and looking worse and worse, and then just getting injured in the ring. At least it didn't have to come to that. I wonder what he will do with the rest of his life. I could see him getting involved with the company on a PR level, or maybe creatively, possibly. And if not, I would be surprised if he just goes to his expensive house in Carolina and just enjoys the rest of his life. And why shouldn't he? It's been well deserved. All the bumps, all the long tours, all the grueling matches. Why doesn't he just go out and ride off in the sunset and enjoy life? I mean, all the best to him. And I just want to say to him, if he's never going to see this, but if word ever gets around, I just want to say I'm a huge fan of yours. I've got like maybe 7 or 8 action figures from each year of him. And yeah, I know, I sound like a nerd. And one of my favourite performers, and just want to say again, thank you for all the performances and all the time you put in and giving fans like myself and fans all over the world something to talk about and something to enjoy. And then the final thing to talk about was really, really sad news. Uh, watch a lot of independent wrestling. I was always a big fan of Larry Sweeney, and I don't think it's an exaggeration to call him one of the best managers of his time. And had he been in the WWE and gotten that exposure, I think he really, really would have been a difference maker in the company. A guy with just such scary natural charisma and, just an ability in front of the camera that very few have. And he can just go off and, a guy with so much talent, it's just scary. And unfortunately, I got the news that he had passed away on Monday evening, and it's a suspected suicide. It's a very, very, very sad thing to hear. And again, it just makes you think about life. He was only 29 years old. Only 29 years old. And that's not much older than I am, and it's shocking that someone so young would, you know, go out under those circumstances. But from what I hear, he had bipolar, and I listened to an interview on Brian Alvarez's site with Chris Hero, one of his best friends, and he said that towards the last 2 years he had some real problems. Apparently, he was in a great amount of debt, had some legal issues, and he was very scared about going to prison. And at one point, apparently, he was just living off on the street, which was really, really just startling to hear. And it's just a shame that the rest of the wrestling world didn't really get fully exposed to him, but for the few of us who did, I mean, I always enjoyed his stuff. One of my favorite wrestlers or wrestling characters, actually, and he'll always probably be in my top 10. Not that that means anything to anyone out there, but yeah, what a heavy week. I'm sorry if I sound a bit down. It's quite late right now, and I was up at, you know, I've been up since 7 and it's now 1 in the morning as I'm doing this video. So, guys, again, let me know what you think. What do you think about Edge's retirement? What do you think is going to happen with the WWE now? Who is going to take that spot that is now left there? Will it be John Morrison? If he jumps Melina, then probably. That's another story altogether. What about Christian? Why isn't Christian now groomed for this spot? Or is there someone, a sleeping giant in the company that we don't know about that's going to fill that role? Uh, Any comments on Larry Sweeney or any comments on WWE Tough Enough are more than welcome. And let me know what you think. And an MMA video will be up, and I'll probably do it in the morning because I really need to get some sleep. Take care, guys, and all the best soon.